Hi, this is Taylor Garcia for AEP 880, and this is for Module 10, which is our Safe Schools assignment. So, a quick summary of the articles that were provided. The first one was titled Strategies for Building a Productive and Positive Learning Environment. A big takeaway that I took from this was that a safe learning environment has to be created. We can't just assume that kids are going to come in and do what we want them to do for it to be safe for all of them. It's best to do it early on in the year, but if you don't, that's okay. It's never too late. You can always implement that. Um, and when creating a safe environment, you should really include the students in what that looks like, feels like, sounds like, so that there is a buy in from the students so that they really want to participate and be a part of this positive learning environment. Along with that, their learning has to be relevant to them. That's going to keep them engaged. There should be some sort of code of conduct that is very clear so that all students know what is expected and what happens if those expectations are not met. Um, and then another big thing that really struck me from this article was all about intrinsic motivation for students. We shouldn't have to constantly be giving them that extrinsic, they're winning a reward, they're earning a prize, whatever it might be. Um, get them to be intrinsically motivated to be a part of that positive learning environment that you want in your classroom. The next article that we read was called Creating a Warm and Inclusive Classroom Environment Planning for All Children to Feel Welcome. A big takeaway from this um, article that I got is that it's not only about how students feel when they're in the classroom, although that isn't very important. It's about the physical space. What does it look like? What does it feel like? What does it sound like? What do your decorations and things on the wall say about this space? Is it bright and fun, or is it dark and dreary and scary? And all of those things need to be taken into consideration when I'm trying to create that safe place for students to be. And then leave some space for students to add their own so that it feels like it's not your classroom as the teacher, it's their classroom that you all share together as a community. The next article was called How Feeling Respected Transforms a Student's Relationship to School. A really big takeaway that I am big on anywhere in my own personal belief is that relationships, are extremely important. Let those students know someone cares for them, someone believes in them, someone wants them to be successful. And then really dig into what's causing negative behavior or bullying or whatever it might be. Don't just kind of brush it off or just say, oh, you need to say sorry. Okay, you're okay. Now we're moving on. Really dig deep into what is causing, this acting out or misbehavior, and communicate with privately with those students and let them know I'm caring for you and I can see that you're acting out because of something that's going on in your life or something that's bothering you. And then the last article we read was called Three Essential Priorities for School Principals, which is obviously important for all of us moving forward. Um, and one thing that kind of struck me was that being a principal is not the same thing that it was 15 or 20 years ago, even 5 or 10 years ago. Everything is changing. And a really important thing when being a principal is that you need to trust your teachers and your staff members and people. You need to trust them to do their job. You can't sit there and micromanage every little thing they do. As much as some people want to manage and control everything, we just can't do that. And we need to create an inclusive environment as a staff, which will then carry over into we can create an inclusive environment for our students. And then the last one, the little takeaway that I had from this was that they need to know, meaning the staff and the students all need to know that they are important to the school environment. And without them, the school isn't the same. So, when they're not there, it's not the same. So, a couple articles that I found. The first one was called Bullying Prevention, and it is just all about how bullying is not something that educators deal with on their own. It's not something that students deal with on their own. We have to work together to determine what is bullying. What does it look like, sound like, feel like? What are going to be the consequences for if bullying happens? And all of those need to be very clear to staff members, students, and even families or parents that are involved. The next one I article that I came across was what are the best ways to prevent bullying in schools? Bullying prevention policies are required by every state nationwide, which is something I didn't know. But just having a policy isn't good enough. Your policy needs to be meaningful. Bullying can happen anywhere, anytime, especially with technology. And it doesn't look like somebody beating somebody up, which is what it's portrayed like in movies or books or TV shows. It's not just that, it can be name calling, teasing, you spreading rumors or lies about somebody. It can be anything. And to really change that, we need to focus on a positive school environment or classroom environment and committing to improving social and emotional learning for our students' well being. The next article that I found was 10 ways to help reduce bullying in schools. And this was a very informative, I love the way it was laid out because it had headings with lots of good examples. So some of the examples include have a clear meaning of bullying, which was something that we read in a resource that was provided for us. Address the behaviors, don't address students based on what other teachers have said about them, which is very hard to do sometimes if they kind of come with a label that's attached to them. You need to detach that and manage the behavior and then manage the student. Don't put those two things together. Reward positive behaviors. When you see it, reward it. Other kids are going to see that they're being rewarded for being kind and doing the right thing, and they might want to do that too. Another thing is have communication with everyone, with involve your families, have your students, your teachers, your administrators, your support staff members, have everyone involved and have open communication with anybody that is involved. And then if it does happen, don't address it publicly, address it privately with only those people who are involved and communicate clearly with them. And then the last article that I found was called Six Ways That Educators Can Prevent Bullying in Schools. Um, a lot of commonalities. This was about a university that interviewed education experts, and there were a few main commonalities, and a few of them that really, really stuck out to me was that you have to create opportunities for your students to feel connected with one another and make them feel like they're a part of a community. They want that sense of belonging. That was a really, really big one that stood out to me. And then teachers need to address bullying that could happen within teachers. As much as we don't like to admit that that's happening, it does happen. And we need to address it and fix it before we can worry about fixing others. It's kind of like we need to put our own oxygen mask on before we put somebody else's on in an airplane. And all of the data that was provided, the three main types of bullying that occur most often, which was not surprising to me, is name calling, teasing, and spreading rumors or lies. This doesn't take any physical effort, so that's very easy for kids to just sit back and say mean things about one another. So it can happen to anyone, anytime, anywhere, doesn't matter. It can happen. And then the two locations that were the most popular were the classroom and the hallway, which is also not shocking. That's where students spend all of their time. And as much as teachers want to see and manage and control every little thing, we simply cannot do that. So having a good system in place for students to respect one another and feel connected and feel a sense of a belonging would probably help manage some of those things. If this is a constant issue, my big takeaway was from one of the resources I found: focus on a classroom environment or a school environment and focus on a social and emotional learning curriculum or skills or whatever it might be. Really dig into who the child is as a person and figure out what is that root cause behind bullying or a misbehavior, and don't cover it up. Really dig deep into it and let those kids know, I care about you, I love you, I know you can be successful, and I'm not going to let this go because I know that you're better than that and you're worth it, and you can do great things if you manage yourself in a way that you should and can be managed. And if, these multiple steps are taken to prevent bullying and implement the standards that were provided, I think there can be major changes and improvements. Students will feel safe, feel that they're cared for, they're respected, and they're encouraged to contribute to a classroom or a school. And they know that they're an important member of that group. And this doesn't refer to only the academics. This is their social and emotional well-being, extracurriculars, activities, and any other support services that may be offered to them. And here are some of my references. References include ones that were provided and the ones that I found for this module. Thank you so much for watching.